All right, it looks like I think everyone has joined us. So we're going to start our information session for this evening. So my name's Dan Murphy. I am the manager for marketing and communications here with the Division of Pre-College and Undergraduate Programs. And we are excited to have you joining us this evening. So thank you for joining us. Um, I'm going to be your MC this evening. We're excited to talk to you today a little bit more about our 2026 Brown Environmental Leadership Lab program. The agenda for tonight's session is we're going to provide you with a very general overview of Brown pre-college programs. I will then introduce our panelists who will give you a high-level overview of our Environmental Leadership Lab or BELL program, explain the different locations that we're going to be offering this summer, areas of study, and various site visits. We're going to conclude tonight with a Q&A. Tonight's webinar is being recorded and will be shared with you within the next week or so. And tonight's session should last about 30 to 45 minutes. Closed captioning is available if you click on the CC button at the bottom of your screen. We also are going to have QR codes available on some of the slides throughout this evening. That's for your convenience. So if you have your phone, you can take it out and you can scan those QR codes and they'll take you directly to our website, the page that has more information about what we're talking about. So please ask questions. That is really the purpose of these information sessions, is to give you some information, but to really answer as many questions as possible. So you can submit questions using the Q&A chat function at the bottom of the screen. We will answer as many as we can live, but we also have two of our outstanding program advisors here with us this evening. They are behind the scenes and they're going to be watching all of the questions coming in, and they'll be able to answer some as well as we're chatting this evening. Just as a friendly reminder, all of tonight's information and even more can be found on our website as well, which is our most up-to-date location for our information and frequently asked questions. So let's dive in. So a general introduction to what is Brown Pre-College. So each year, Brown Pre-College welcomes more than 6,000 high school students from over 70 countries, and that includes all 50 of the United States. These students choose to spend part of their summer with us, and they're doing that here in Providence at our location here in Providence at our Brown campus, at locations around the world, or online. These students explore over 300 courses that are intentionally crafted to also reflect the undergraduate open curriculum, which is the hallmark of Brown University. Our structure for our pre-college program reflects the freedoms and the responsibilities that we believe are critically important parts of that college experience. So as a result, you'll balance the challenge of college-level academics with the enriching social activities that are available, whether you choose to study in person or online. So regardless of which program you're interested in, the very first step in your Brown pre-college experience is actually completing our application. Our application is designed to mirror the Common Application, which is used by many colleges and universities. And so our application will actually help prepare you for that college application process, including adding transcripts and thinking through and crafting an essay based on a unique writing prompt, which I feel like is an invaluable experience, just so that way you have an idea of what to expect when you start applying for colleges in the future. Our summer 2026 application opens in 1 week, so next Wednesday, January 14th, and the deadline for submitting an application is Friday, May 8th. You can find our application checklist, which includes the essay prompts, grade requirements, and anything else that you will need to provide for a complete application by clicking on the Apply button at the top of our website or by scanning this QR code. You will also find a video tutorial with step-by-step instructions on how to complete the application. So if you're a visual learner like myself, you can watch that and it kind of walks you through the application process and shows you what the screen will look like. Admission decisions are made on a rolling basis. So decisions will be sent to students as they become available beginning on Monday, January 19th. In most cases, admission decisions are made within 15 business days of receiving a complete application. So in order to participate, and this is very important, students must enroll in a course after being admitted. So being admitted does not mean a student is enrolled into a particular course or academic program. You must actively then enroll in a course once admitted. We now also, since tonight's session is specifically about Bell, here are some of Bell's specific deadlines, which are a little bit different than our general pre-college deadlines. So the priority enrollment deadline for Bell is Friday, March 6th, or sooner if programs reach capacity. All students enrolled by then will attend a welcome meeting with program directors. So we always encourage you, if you're interested in Bell, apply sooner rather than later. All forms and payment deadline for Bell is Wednesday, April 8th. And then the last day that we will offer seats to students on the Bell waitlist will be Tuesday, April 28th. So now that we've provided a general overview of our application process and our timeline, let's transition to learning a little bit more about one of our most popular programs, which is Brown Environmental Leadership Lab, or Bell. So to go further in detail about our Bell program for 2026, I'm pleased to welcome tonight's panelists, Dr. Jane Winograd, who is our Associate Director of Pre-College Programs and Environmental Studies. Welcome, Jane.
Thank you. This is my favorite part of every winter, my webinar with Dan.
It's the best part of winter.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to talk about Bell, and thank you for all of you who are attending, or later on for anyone who's watching this recorded. So just a little bit about myself. I have been working as the Bell program director for 8 years. Prior to that, I was an instructor for the Bell program during my own doctorate. And Bell's been absolutely like a huge part of my life. So I'm really excited to be sharing information about it today and sharing some updates for 2020, summer 2026. So Bell started in 2002 with Bell Rhode Island. So Bell Rhode Island is one of our most popular programs. It's actually turning 24 this summer. So it's our oldest Bell program. It's evolved over the years. It's always had the same kind of foundation, which is to combine concepts in environmental studies, ecology, and leadership with a mission of developing socially responsible leaders. The environmental component of Bell is obviously very important. Environmental studies is always at the center of most lessons taught by our instructors and guest speakers, regardless of the location, regardless of the course. The two L's in Bell are also obviously huge aspects of the program. The first L is leadership, which connects Bell with the Leadership Institute, another program in pre-college, and it represents a huge portion of the curriculum at Bell. Both programs highlight leadership principles and skills, and at Bell, students learn about what it takes to be a change maker in the challenging political and ecological climate. The second L is for lab, which most people may associate with the imagery of scientists standing over a microscope, wearing a white coat, and that's certainly one way to think about a lab. In the context of Bell, I hope that you'll think about it as like-minded people coming together to learn together and from one another. A lab can be a physical space, but it can also be a community, and that's important to remember when thinking about what the day-to-day will be like at Bell. Students are working and learning together as a cohort and a community. So let's talk about Bell 2026 specifically. So this is like the big reveal of the locations we're offering this year. We have 3 locations for Bell. One is in Rhode Island, which is our longest running program for the Bell program. One is in Florida Keys, and one is in Alaska. So I'm going to share a little bit more about each program specifically. Starting with Florida Keys. So at Bell Florida Keys, students will study tropical marine ecology and conservation, looking at sustainable restoration of coral reefs, and also studying mangrove ecology. So I've included a few of the topics, but over the course of the week, students are involved in multiple lessons a day, and I'll go into what the schedule looks like for Bell Florida Keys so you can get a glimpse. While students are attending the program, they're going to be at Marine Lab in Key Largo, Florida. So if you're familiar with the Keys, the Florida Keys, Key Largo is the northernmost key. And that is the very bottom of Florida, for those of you who are not familiar. So the Field Station Marine Lab is located in that northernmost key. And what's great about that is it provides access to really interesting ecosystems. So the students will literally be diving into these different ecosystems that surround the Marine Lab. As in previous years, most lessons will be provided by Marine Lab staff and will usually include a discussion and a lab portion. For up to 6 of the lessons, depending on the weather, students will be on the water, including lessons on reef ecology, mangrove ecology, and marine debris. For other Marine Lab lessons, students will be on site in the on-site lab. There's actually a couple different labs, and they'll work on follow-up labs in topics like invertebrate diversity and microplastics, which goes really well with the lesson, for example, on marine debris. New this year, a Brown University PhD candidate will be with the group the whole time and will be teaching alongside the Marine Lab staff. So the course will complement the lessons and on the water labs provided by Marine Lab, and it will focus on a blend of science, art, and environmental justice. This course also includes the guidance on action plan development. And I have a whole slide on action plan later on. So if this is your first time ever hearing about the Bell Action Plan, I promise I'll explain a little more. So what's great about having a course provided by Brown University PhD candidate is that we're bringing a little bit more Brown University to this program this year. And that PhD candidate will be responsible for kind of helping students understand all of the content that Marine Lab is providing, but in the context of the research that she's leading at Brown. So I'm very excited about that. I'm also excited about the crossover of art and environmental studies. While that's not the entire focus of her course, it's a big part of it. And a lot of students really like to explore art in terms of the intersection with environmental studies. So I think this is a really great year for students who are interested in a little bit of the creativity and the intersectional parts of environmental studies. A little bit more about Florida Keys. The Bell students meet the staff at the airport on arrival day during a specified window, and the staff will then bring the students to the airport on departure day. So the staff meet the students at the airport and bring them to the airport at the end of the program. And the biggest thing I'd like to share with students about, or prospective students about the Bell Florida Keys program, is that it's really important just to know that students will be spending a lot of time near the water and many days on the water, in the water. So a comfort with the water is key. That does not mean a person has to be the best swimmer or have any sort of experience snorkeling. Zero experience is completely acceptable as long as a student is excited to explore the water and comfortable. So let's talk about a day in the life. At Bell Florida Keys, the students have really full schedules, and you'll hear me say that a lot about all the programs. Especially with this 8-day program, we really try to squeeze in as much as we possibly can. So students and staff all eat breakfast together at 8:15. By 9 a.m., the students are in their first lesson or in a classroom or gearing up to get on the boats, literally gearing up. There's a little gear area where the students will all gather everything they need in order to get on the boats. Regardless of whether they're in a lab, in a classroom, or on the water, everyone breaks for lunch together around 12:45. And we also add in something called solo time when we're able to. And that's just an opportunity for students and staff to decompress and get ready for the afternoon. In the afternoon, students attend another lesson, either on the water, in an indoor lab, or sometimes even outside on the property of the field station, just because it's nice to be in their kind of wider open spaces when the weather's nice. Then there's a little more downtime for reading or resting. And after everyone eats dinner together, the staff will often provide an evening lesson or sometimes a group activity, usually based on what the students are interested in. So that could even be something like choose your own adventure with volleyball or building a puzzle. And luckily those happen in the same area, though sometimes the people who are doing the puzzle get a little distracted by the volleyball. Students are all expected to be in their dorms by 10 p.m. when Bell staff does curfew checks, and you'll see me repeat that for all of our programs, and this is not unique to Bell. All students across all programs have a curfew of 10 p.m. regardless of whether you're on campus or in our program in Florida Keys or in one of our B programs, all the same curfew. And as I mentioned, I want to keep repeating this, students attending Bell Florida Keys should be really excited to spend time near the water. And the last thing I like to do for each of my programs is just kind of do a gear spotlight. This kind of gives people an understanding of what the field experience is like at each of my programs. So the three most important things on the packing list is how I do a gear spotlight. The first thing is a rash guard or long sleeve t-shirt. If you've never heard of a rash guard, it's just a way for people to have a lightweight layer of sun protection while they're out doing field work. So it's really, really popular. You'll probably see a lot of people in like lifeguard roles or field scientists who work out in sunny areas wearing them. So that is a really important piece of clothing if you're going to be a scientist out in the field. And it's really important for all of the students at Bell Florida Keys to just have full coverage so that we don't have to worry about layering on tons of sunblock all day, every day. And then other sun protection, like I mentioned, sunblock, but also a hat. And then ideally everything is reef safe, which just means that it doesn't contain items that, or it doesn't contain ingredients that can potentially harm the ocean or oils that might impact the coral reefs that students are going to be snorkeling around. And unsurprisingly, a water bottle. Students need to stay hydrated, obviously, doing all of the physical activity it takes to snorkel and collect some data out in the field in the open, sunny conditions of South Florida. So it's really important to bring a big water bottle. And that's all I'll highlight for Bell Florida Keys, but I'm happy to answer questions about it. Love to move on to Bell Rhode Island, which again is our oldest program. It's going to be 24 years old this summer. This is the only Bell course that's offered in Rhode Island, so it allows students to explore the ocean state's ecosystem, but also offers students the chance to stay on Brown University's campus. And the balance of that is really what I think makes this program unique amongst the other Bell courses and our other programs that are considered off campus, because the students get to have a little taste of Brown University's campus, but then travel as a cohort around the state and even some other areas in southern New England to just explore different areas that other students who are attending campus programs may not be able to see. So you'll be able to read about the course offerings in Bell Rhode Island in the course catalog, but I did kind of want to walk you through a day in the life of the Bell Rhode Island program as well. So students arrive on campus for Brown Pre-College check-in, and that was something I forgot to mention in the last slide, and they go right to Bell housing. So our staff checks the students in where they're going to be living, which is different than the other Bell programs. From day to day, students are usually eating breakfast as a community by 8:30 and their first lesson or on the way to a field trip by 10 a.m. For day trips, students will board a bus together and travel as a group to different parts of Rhode Island, or like I said, southern New England. Some of our courses have field trips that go into Connecticut a little bit, and a lot of them go into Massachusetts because we border both of those states. The group always breaks for lunch, regardless of where they are. Sometimes that lunch is on a beach, sometimes it's on a hike, sometimes it's in a campus dining hall. And then when possible, again, we like to pause for solo time. Sometimes we like to do solo time in fun places, like bringing students to a natural space where they can just all spread out and enjoy solo time in nature. But oftentimes solo time happens at the dorm building, so students can kind of do whatever they need to unwind. And then in the afternoon, there's a continuation of a site visit if it's a long day or a new lesson or a new field trip. And if the group is out, they're usually back by 5 or 5:30 so that there's time to get a little bit settled before community dinner. Dinner is usually around 6 o'clock, and we do community dinner as well. So you'll notice a trend is that unlike some of the other campus programs, we're doing everything as a community. So it's a cohort-based program where students are really spending a lot of time getting to know each other and staying in community, even though there's access to other people and other resources at Brown University and through our pre-college programs. After dinner, usually there's a staff-led activity. Sometimes we combine with the other pre-college programs, but for the most part, we do a lot of our own programming specifically for Bell, and that will look like leadership development workshops or action plan work. And again, students are expected to be in their dorm rooms by 10 p.m. when Bell staff does curfew checks. And my gear spotlight for Bell, Rhode Island is comfortable bedding because you're going to be staying in a college dorm. So for those of you who have not experienced that, it's not always the comfiest place in the world, but it's really amazing to stay in a building filled with Bell students. And the students always really love where we house them. And they really make it their own, but comfortable bedding is really important. And then comfortable clothing for site visits and long days outdoors. The Rhode Island summer can sometimes be very mild and enjoyable, and sometimes it's a lot. It can be very hot, it can be very sunny. You can see in this photo here, for example, this was quite a hot day, and the students were taking their lunch break and solo time break on this big open rock. So definitely bring shade, for example, in a hat or an umbrella if you feel like you're going to need it. And of course, the water bottle. So last but not least, I'll share about Bell Alaska. At Bell Alaska, students will learn about the Alaskan experience, both from a native perspective and an ecological perspective. And while there are plenty of places around the world that share characteristics of Alaska, I really feel like it's a truly unique place. You'll be, just like with Bell, Rhode Island, you'll be able to read more about each of the course offerings in the course catalog. Like Bell Florida Keys, the Alaska staff will meet students on arrival day at the only airport in Anchorage. And they'll also escort the students to the airport on the last day of the program. And home base for this program is going to be the University of Alaska Anchorage, which is a beautiful campus. It's really like located right in the heart of Anchorage. So it gives students and staff access to everything they need, really. But then on top of that, it's very close to a lot of the field trip locations that the groups visit. So a day in the life at Bell Alaska is quite similar to the other programs, with the difference being the home base of Anchorage, Alaska makes the site visits quite different, obviously. But during the program, students and staff are usually eating breakfast around 8 a.m. By 10 a.m., students are in their first lesson or they're on the way to a site visit. For local field trips, students usually travel within about 20 minutes to places like the Anchorage Museum or Earthquake Park, for example. Whereas some of the longer field trips will take the group about 2.5 hours north or 2.5 hours south of Anchorage. And just to give you some context, those cities would be Palmer, Alaska, and Seward, Alaska. Everyone breaks for lunch together. And again, if the schedule allows, we do solo time for a little bit of time to decompress. Lunches and actually all meals are usually provided by UA's dining hall. So even if we're out on the go, the students can have a bagged lunch from UAA. In the afternoon, students continue their site visits or go to another lesson. And if there's time, there's usually some downtime in the afternoon for reading or resting. Um, Dinner will almost always be at University of Alaska, and on the long field trip days, if needed, the dinner may be like stopping on the way back, for example. And after everyone eats dinner together, if there is an activity in the evening, that'll happen at University of Alaska's campus, things like leadership development workshops, social activities like movie nights, game nights, or sometimes guided action plan development time. And I'm a broken record. Students are expected to be in their dorm rooms by 10 p.m. when Bell staff does curfew checks. And I'll do my gear spotlight for Bell Alaska, and then I'll kind of jump into a little bit more of generally what Bell is. So the three most important items on your packing list, hiking boots with ankle support, cannot emphasize enough the ankle support. Alaska can be pretty rainy over the summer, and therefore the hikes that the group does can sometimes be quite slick, but having hiking boots with ankle support makes all the difference. Layers are really important. We actually provide students with a link to, actually an Alaskan government website that kind of walks you through layering appropriately for the Alaskan summers, because it can start off in the 40 degrees and then end up in the 90 degrees in the same day. So it's really important to just be able to bundle up and then reduce layers as you start getting warmer. And then rain gear, because we're going to be doing our lessons outdoors pretty much no matter what, having rain gear is really important. I will add one more thing, more of a fun fact about Alaska is that they call it the land of the midnight sun, and that's because at midnight the sun can still be out. So we typically only get like 4 hours of darkness during the Bell Alaska program. So having something like an eye mask or a way to sleep through the bright light is always very helpful. And we add that to the packing list for students as well. So let's talk a little bit more broadly about what sets Bell apart. So the big things that I love to mention, and I've said so many times already in this presentation, are that the Bell programs have really full schedules. So they differ from some of our other programs in that they're 24/7. We're not literally learning that entire time, but the days are quite long. They go from about 8 a.m. to about 10 p.m. with limited breaks. And we try to be strategic about those breaks and have the students express when and if and when they need more breaks. But it's a really busy program and we try to fill it up as much as we possibly can while the students are on location. Some days have a combination of field trips and on-site lessons. Some days take students away from the lodging site for an entire day, whereas some days are a little bit more what I would describe as low key, a lot of time in the classroom doing action plan development, setting the foundation for future field visits. So every day is a little bit different. During the entire program, we also ask students to set down their electronic devices. And it doesn't mean we don't take people's phones from them. It's actually important for students to have access to lines of communication for both safety reasons and a lot of other personal reasons. But summer after summer, I've seen this have such a positive impact on the community. And most students actually highlight the reduction in cell phone usage as one of their favorite aspects about Bell. So I hope that the right people have found this program and are kind of excited to reduce their electronics and reduce the amount that they're relying on being on their cell phone in social settings. So some important notes about Bell. I mentioned the field trips a lot. Obviously, they're subject to change. We will not have students out in dangerous weather. We will certainly have you out in light rain, sometimes even heavy rain. But of course, if there's any serious weather or any issues with a guest speaker where they're unwell or not able to make it, we may need to reschedule or cancel things. And we always try to find something similar to replace it with, but we obviously can't control the weather. A couple of people have already asked about how big the cohorts are, so it's really important for me to mention the Bell cohorts are quite small. We try to keep the program small for a number of reasons. Some of that is just the capacity, some of it is because we think a smaller group, a smaller cohort just learns better together. However, due to the tremendous demand that we had last year, we've increased the capacity of all of our Bell programs. So while they still are small, I'm happy that we've increased the capacity so that we can hopefully accommodate more students. Regardless, I hope that you'll apply early if you're interested in Bell. They do fill up quite quickly because they're so small, and I guess they're also very popular, which is really wonderful, and I'm very grateful for that. But the size of them is really the big reason why they fill up so quickly. And then the last thing is that it's really important for you to read the course descriptions and the associated prerequisites carefully so you know what you're signing up for. Some of the Bell programs will offer more than one course offering, and some of them will just have one. As long as you're comfortable with a little bit of with being a little bit flexible and kind of being exposed to some new concepts that intersect with environmental studies, I think any Bell program can be a good fit for a student who's interested in environmental science. But it's still really important to read the details, the learning outcomes, and make sure that you're comfortable with the course topic. So I said that I would talk a little bit more about the Bell Action Plan. Like I said, this is the part of the course, the program rather, that ties us to the Leadership Institute, which is the only other program that has the action plan. And the development of an action plan at Bell is meant to help students learn about the process of developing an action or advocacy plan. So this means that during the course, students will spend time working on their action plans with their peers, instructors, and others who they meet throughout the program, like guest speakers. And by the end of the Bell course, students are expected to give a 3-minute oral presentation about their plan and how they intend to see it through once they're home. Our action plan library, which is linked here, will give you a good understanding of the scope of others' projects. So it might be good to look at some of those. And that's also a fun incentive is the students whose plans we review and find eligible can actually be highlighted on our website. We select up to 10 students per year, and you can see some years have that many students and some years don't. So we like to highlight only the ones that we think are exceptional. So the action plan is not necessarily to send Bell students home with a complete thought, but really with the outline of a plan to start with. And often, as you'll read in the action plan library, students will get home and realize they need to pivot or adapt the plan in some way. So instructors aim to send the students home with some skills to navigate those adjustments. And some of our students go home and are able to see their action plans through while others don't get to. But the actual expectation for the course is that students engage in the process of planning, not necessarily that they take the exact actions that they outline in our plan. So, is the Bell program for you? I hope if you've stayed this long, you're still really excited about it. But I like to explain the type of student that typically enjoys the Bell program. Bell students are typically inquisitive, mature, passionate about something, and willing to hear other perspectives. They're excited about environmental studies and their own leadership development. They're excited to learn in a cohort. They are excited to learn and build relationships with other students who they may not have a lot in common with, or who come from different perspectives. They're excited to try new things, both academic and socially. They're excited to learn in non-traditional settings and ways, including a lot of student-led discussions and exploratory activities. They're open to living in close quarters. While every Bell student will always have their own bed and access to a bathroom and privacy, Bell students often find themselves sharing space for most of the day. So this may mean that you're just in close proximity to other people on a bus, in classrooms, or in community spaces. And it also may mean that you share a room with one or more people. As I mentioned at the beginning, Bell is experiential learning, so students will be on the move, out in the field, and quite busy pretty much every day of the program. If learning inside and outside the classroom seems exciting to you, this might be a good option. If, however, you would prefer a program that allows you some more freedom in how you go about your day, one of our other amazing programs might be a better fit for you. And I'll let Dan take over from here, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Great, thank you so much, Jane. So we're going to transition to a live Q&A. We have gone a few questions throughout the presentation. We also got quite a few questions pre-submitted. So I'm going to start with a few of those. The most common question I'm seeing, which I can take, is how much does the program cost? And do we offer scholarships, financial aid, things like that? Um, so uh, program costs and dates are live on our website. So if you actually head to precollege.brown.edu, at the very top, you'll see dates and costs. Click on that, and then you'll be able to scroll down to Bell, find the program, and you'll see the cost. We do provide scholarships for domestic students. Currently, we do not offer financial aid to international students, but more of about those scholarships are also on that page for the dates and costs. One thing we like to point out is if you are interested in a scholarship, we highly recommend applying for a scholarship as soon as you submit your completed application. So if that is something you're interested in, we encourage you to apply quickly, both to the program as well to a scholarship. Jane, we did get a question that came in today, also pre-submitted, but specifically talking about food accommodations. So can you talk a little bit more about food accommodations, dietary restrictions in these locations?
Yes, absolutely. So Brown University has really wonderful dining services that I can say confidently
Yeah.
can accommodate dietary restrictions. Any need that we've had from a student that I'm aware of has been met by Brown Dining Services. And we have a lot more flexibility in that program than we do in others. So I would say for a student who's like kind of nervous and maybe exploring a program outside of their own home community for the first time, Rhode Island has the most resources for students, both from like a health and medical perspective, but also just from any other perspective because students will have access to all of the Brown University campus resources. Alaska, I would say, is the most limited in terms of food options for students. However, the University of Alaska Dining Hall is a nut-free facility, so that's always helpful. The reason that we ask students to submit their forms so early is so we can catch any accommodations that will either be challenging to accommodate or that we would not be able to accommodate so that we can have a conversation with the student about an alternative plan. Florida Keys is a little bit limited, but only because they have such a limited size for their kitchen. Field stations are not known to be very large. So they have accommodated almost every dietary need that has ever come across the program, but we need advance notice and we need to kind of sometimes have more in-depth conversations with people to make sure that A, we understand a dietary restriction and can keep the students safe, and B, that the facilities that we're using at in Bell, Alaska or Bell, Florida Keys are prepared to accommodate the students' needs.
Great, thank you. A common question we're getting is, and you kind of touched a little bit in the presentation, but if you could provide a little bit more information about how do students get to the program? Do students travel together? Do they meet at the program location? Any other information about that?
Yeah. So the first thing I'll say about that is that our enrolled student information pages are basically like the playbook of how to attend any of our programs, including Bell, but also all of our other programs that are on campus online. The enrolled student information page is thorough. So each student enrolled in a Bell program will have access to that information. This won't be the only time you hear this. So for Alaska and Florida Keys, the students will meet at the airport and they have a specified window. We'll be in touch with you many, many times prior to arrival day. And the staff will all be in Brown University pre-college t-shirts. You'll have seen a photo of the staff members in advance, so you'll know who you're meeting. And all of that information comes to students and their families in the form of pre-departure emails and a pre-departure orientation. So the students will meet staff at the airport. Typically, people do not travel together, but for example, heading to Alaska, a lot of students will have a layover in the same airport and end up flying to Anchorage on the same flight. So we do our best to connect people ahead of time or give students space to connect with other people who are traveling to the program. For Bell, Rhode Island, it functions like any other campus program, and the students actually check in at Brown University. So the students come to us in that program and they meet us at the housing facility. So it's actually pretty easy if students are coming on a flight or train or car, whatever it is. The building is pretty easy to get to, and it's a very low-key check-in compared to just like the big check-in that happens on campus for the other programs. And then the orientation starts shortly after check-in time for Bell, Rhode Island.
Great, thank
Yeah.
you. So I'm seeing two other questions coming in, which I can take, but feel free to jump in. First one is, I think a common question we get is the application the same for all of the different locations? Great question. Um, so Brown Pre-College as a whole, that's the umbrella term, and then Bell falls underneath that. So when you are applying to Brown Pre-College, you're applying to Brown Pre-College as a whole. And then if you are admitted, and you meet the eligibility requirements for the program. And if there are seats still available in that program, then you would be able to enroll in that. So you would apply to Brown Pre-College as a whole. Let's say you are eligible for all of the Bell programs and there are seats in them, you would then be able to choose between which of the programs you are interested in. The other question that came in, I was seeing quite a few about recommendation letters for application. So a letter of recommendation is not required to apply to Brown Pre-College or the Bell program. It is required for the pre-baccalaureate program, but in general, it is not a requirement. Something to note, though, is that if you do say that you are submitting a letter of recommendation, we will not review your application until we receive that letter of recommendation. So your application will not be complete until we receive that. So whoever is writing that letter of recommendation, one, make sure that they are aware that you put them down, but then also just make sure you're following up with them to make sure it's submitted because we won't be able to review your application until then. Um, and so that, yeah. Um, let's see. Jane, this one, I'm going to allow you to take this one. What happens if the program fills and I'm waitlisted? Can I enroll in another program, another Bell program? Just thoughts on that.
Yeah, so I think everything depends on your personal circumstances. So if you're admitted to Brown Pre-College and your program of interest, the one that you are really excited about most, has filled up, this applies to all of our courses across all of our programs. We would immediately encourage you to start looking for other courses within the same program that feel like the best next fit for you. Granted, some people have very specific availability, so it may not work for you to go from Bell, Alaska, for example, if it's your first choice, to Bell, Rhode Island. However, there are a lot of other options as well. And the course catalog is great because you can specify by location and you can see what's available there first. So if you've decided that there's only one course for you, you can show up on the wait list. You can stay in touch with us and we will work through the wait list as seats become available. Students are always notified in order of when they show up on the wait list. So if you're getting in early enough, there is a chance that you can be pulled off the wait list. If you're applying a little bit later, chances are a little bit lower. If there are other programs that you're interested in, some students choose to stay on a wait list for the course that they're most excited about and then enroll in a different course. And oftentimes they end up going to that second course or even the third course that they find that they're excited about too. I would say students who are very excited about one program, it can be very disappointing to find out that that program is already waitlisted or the course is already waitlisted. But hopefully that will give you an opportunity to look a little bit deeper in our course catalog and see what there is to offer. Luckily this year we do have some overlapping dates with our Bell programs, so that allows students who are only available for one course to check out another location. And the one thing I'll say is it looks like Bell Rhode Island may be your only option. There's like a lot of students who look for Bell Alaska, Bell Florida Keys to kind of get outside of the Brown University community and try something a little bit new. That said, though, the reason that Bell Rhode Island fills up last is because we have so many seats. We have 100 seats in that program this year, and we've expanded it so that more people can experience it. So even though it looks like, it's open, it's not because of lack of interest, it's because it's a bigger program.
Yeah, yeah, great. I think we have time for maybe two more questions, and two common ones that came in. The first one is, what do the classroom lessons kind of entail? Is there homework? Like, will they have homework when
Yeah,
they are in these classroom settings? Any insights?
that's a great question. So all of our courses are taught by different individuals, so they're all going to vary based on that individual's teaching style. And obviously, a course on geophysics is going to be very different from a course on science communication. So, like I said, reading the course description is really important. During the classroom time, our instructors spend a lot of time kind of introducing a concept and having students practice applying that in some way. So, for example, if you're learning about like paleoclimatology and the whole history of the Earth, students will learn about it, read about it prior to attending a class session, and then maybe they'll work together to establish a timeline of the history of the planet. And that will be like a very long activity where students collaborate, ask questions of the instructor, and maybe he'll kind of guide the students, but help them establish the timeline. And then at the end, they'll come together and the instructor will say, like, these things you got right, these things you got wrong. Let's kind of go over where you messed up a little bit, and clarify some things. And then the students will go out into the field and they'll apply that knowledge. So they'll look at a transect of dirt. I know that that is not the proper terminology, but I'm not a paleoclimatologist. So they'll look at a transect together, and the expert paleoclimatologist who's teaching the course will then say, these are the layers that we were talking about when we were talking about that part of the Earth's history. So that is the goal, is to discuss something, read about something, have a lecture about something in some cases. There's all different formats of learning, and then hopefully applying it in the field. And then even beyond that is applying it as part of a student's action plan. As
Great.
far as homework, it varies day to day. Staff are very well aware that there's very limited downtime, so they're not going to give 3 hours of homework, but they are definitely going to be giving things like readings ahead of time. There's some group projects that occur in different Bell courses, so they'll make space for the groups to all meet together. Um, but yeah, it's not a homework heavy experience. It's really just preparation for the classroom or field experience that's really important.
Great. And so for the last question, you kind of already addressed it a little bit, but I'm going to ask it just because it was a common question. But the question is like, what is the ratio of field work to lecture? And it
Yeah.
sounds like almost like they're learning in the classroom, they're doing preparatory work, and then there's hopefully then a field trip, field work that is then associated with that.
Yeah, absolutely. The one that I just gave an example of is from a Rhode Island course and an Eastern Sierras course, for a program that we're not running for 2026, but hopefully for 2027. And some other really good examples, like marine debris is a really good example in Bell, Florida Keys. It takes a lot of learning to kind of grasp the concept of pollution, and then within that, plastics pollution in the ocean. So I think the marine debris lab, where students are out literally looking at the trash that people have put into the ocean, is not the whole lesson. Like, collecting trash from the ocean is a part of it, and kind of dissecting, not literally, like kind of dissecting that trash and understanding where it came from and what kind of impact it's having on the ocean is the part that happens in the lab and in the classroom discussions. So in that case, for example, they start on the water and then they bring things back to the lab. So there's always different ways of doing it. I will say for some of our courses, it is less of a 50-50 split between experiential outdoor education and classroom work. And I would say the most classroom time of any of our courses, and this is made quite clear in the course descriptions, would be about, I'm trying to give it a percentage, like 75% classroom indoor work that is still exciting and kind of moving around the classroom. It's not sitting in a lecture that whole time. And then 25% field work.
Right.
That's probably the lowest ratio of field experience.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
So before we wrap it up, upcoming info sessions. This is the schedule. This is available on our website, on our homepage. We'll also email you as these get closer, but we're going to have info sessions for the next few weeks on all of our programs. So if you're interested in any of the other programs, feel free to register. And then we will have some that are more based around like topic of types of courses, so like STEM, humanities, social sciences, all of that. So feel free to join us. And then if you have any questions that we didn't get to, or you're thinking about this and tomorrow you have a question, please feel free to reach out to us. Send us an email at precollege@brown.edu or give us a call. We have 5 amazing program advisors. I say it every info session, but they are the encyclopedia of our department division of Brown Pre-College. no question is too big or too small for them. They can really help guide you through trying to figure out how to make Brown Pre-College the best experience for you and figure out like what's the best course or what might be the best program for you. So definitely feel free to ask them, and they can help you with the application if you have questions as you're going through that. And then lastly, follow us on social media if you don't already, at Brown Pre-College at all of your favorite social media locations. We really try to highlight what our program is and show you as much student-created content as possible so that you get that like insider look. So definitely take a look at that. So. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us this evening. Jane, thank you for sharing your knowledge and expertise on your super popular program. And thank you, everyone, wherever you're joining us from, for taking some time out of your life to learn a little bit more about Brown Pre-College. We really appreciate it. So have a lovely evening, everyone, and we'll chat soon, hopefully.